County. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Yountville Town Council meeting for Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. I'll go ahead and call this special meeting to order. And before I ask for a roll call, I will read the protocols we'll be following for this special meeting. This special meeting of the Town Council is being held pursuant to Government Code Section 54953B related to teleconferencing of meetings. In addition, this meeting format is pursuant to the Governor's proclamation of a state emergency and executive orders where certain sections of the Brown Act related to teleconference meetings have been waived. The town manager is present in his office. I am present in the council chambers, and Vice Mayor Dorman and council members Moeller, Dornbecker, and Knight, along with staff, are participating remotely by video, audio, in conformance with the governor's executive order. Public comment has been public input. I'll now ask the town clerk to conduct roll and ask each member of the town council to confirm they are able to hear the proceedings and that they have a copy of the agenda for this meeting. Michelle? Michelle, you're muted.
Sorry, I was working on something else. Councilmember Knight?
Yes to both, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dornbecker?
Yes to both, thank you.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes to both.
Vice Mayor Dorman?
Yes, yes, and present, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar.
Yes. As I said, the public is able to provide public comment at publiccomment@yville.com. If we have voting today, we will have voting today. Any vote taken during the teleconference portion of the meeting will be taken by a roll call vote led by the town clerk. In addition, public hearings and administrative regular items that have representatives that are not staff will be provided access to the meeting upon their agenda item. So with that, I'm going to invite one of our several special guests, but the guest of honor today, Sergeant Hallman, if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll ask you, you need to really give it your full voice because they have to hear you on this microphone here. So if you would please. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sergeant. Okay, next up is the adoption of our agenda for today. I don't believe we have any changes, so is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Dornbecker, second Councilmember Knight. A roll call, Michelle.
Councilmember Dornbecker?
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Here.
Vice Mayor Dorman?
Yes.
Mayor Dunbar?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have two proclamations today. The first one is a certificate of appreciation that will be presented to Lynn Pena for her service on the Zoning and Design Review Board. I want to make sure that we have Lynn. There she is.
Yeah.
And I see Randy in the background, unless that's a virtual Randy. He's moving, so I think it's real. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for being available today. And we'd like to recognize your years of service for the town of Yountville. I will go ahead and read this certificate of appreciation. And since you're not present, I'll just tease you with this one. I gotta put it in front of my face. There we go.
There we go.
We'll be getting this to you later.
Thank you.
Your certificate of appreciation in recognition of Lynn Pena, Zoning and Design Review Board. The Town Council and staff express a sincere thank you for your contributions and service to the town of Yountville as a member of the Zoning, Design and Review Board between July 2018 and July 2021. I'm going to try again to do this. You might see part of it. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, wow. That's kind of a cool effect.
It looks just like a background. There it is. Anyway, I'm going to stop doing that now. Thank you so much, Lynn. I'd like to invite you to say a few words if you would.
Thank you. Mayor and council members and staff, everyone that is present today. It has been a pleasure to serve not only on the ZDRB, but also on the Envision Committee when we were creating the general plan. So one led to another for me. Once I worked on the general plan, the new general plan revisions, it seemed like a natural next step to go to ZDRB. And it's definitely been a learning experience. And I recognize how difficult it is to try to do the best for the town, the community, and the people, the residents that live here. And I feel like it was my pleasure to serve and to do that. It was also a challenge. I'm not going to ignore that fact, but I think any good things in life present their challenges as well. So I thank all of you for all of your support through that. And you'll probably see me around town in some way, shape, or form as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we'll do the virtual applause. And the virtual applause. It's real applause in here, people. We got it. We're getting crazy in here. Again, Lynn, thank you so much. It really takes the volunteer effort of many members of our community to continue to keep us all working together in the same direction and supporting each other. So thank you very much. And we know that you're going to stay active. So we'll see you soon, probably on the bocce courts.
No doubt. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Lynn. Next, because we do have our special guests here, I will go ahead and put my mask on, and we're going to do part of this masked and part of this without mask for a photo that will be done with the proper health and safety distancing. But I do want to invite up our Sergeant John Hallman, and his family to recognize his career and give him a certificate of appreciation upon his pending retirement. So please, Sergeant and the Hallmans. I'm not sure the best way to do this. I guess we won't see ourselves on that camera, but that's all right. Because we're on that camera. Perfect. I'm going to start off with this part. This has become a tradition for us to, I'm sorry, Sheriff, that you have to see this, but he won't. I'm sure he'll pass it on quickly to his minor children. Yes. But this is just a sign of, one of the things that we do so well here in Yountville and in the Napa Valley. And you can enjoy this, not until you retire, but once you've retired, please enjoy this and remember our community has loved and respected all the work that you've done for us. So
thank you, sir.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll give it to my wife. Good choice. See, good decision making. So now I'll read the certificate of appreciation. In recognition of John Holman, Sergeant, Napa County Sheriff Department, Yountville Station. Sergeant John Holman has served in law enforcement for over 26 years, including the last 6 years for the town of Yountville. Sergeant Holman has served in a variety of capacities during his career, including Napa County Patrol rotations, field training officer, gang enforcement, SWAT, investigations, computer crimes task force, peer support team, active shooter instructor, and rescue task force training. Sergeant Holman is a beloved member of the Yountville community, known for his kind, patient, and personal approach to law enforcement and interacting with the public. During threats to our public safety, as well as in times of celebration, Sergeant Holman rose to those occasions and represented the badge with honor and distinction. The residents, business owners, and visitors in the town of Yountville express our appreciation and gratitude for your distinguished career of service. We wish you the best in your retirement.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. So we'll do one pose. Now I think we can go ahead and take our masks off. We're all going to hold our breath. Not really, but if we could just we'll properly distance. We'll hold this. I think we can go ahead and close that.
Did we lose the mayor?
I think he shut his laptop, but he'll still be on channel 28. They might have a better view that way. I couldn't see John from.
No, it's really,
That's the downside to the virtual background, is you virtually eliminate everything else.
he was like the invisible man.
If not, Vice Mayor, you'll need to be prepared to take over the meeting if we've lost him.
The mayor's logging back in, and I'm admitting him right now.
And I'm back. I'm not
Yay.
quite see. This live TV thing is really tricky. What I was mentioning is that I know that we have some special guests here in the chambers, and I'd also like to invite our town manager, Steve Rogers, to share some thoughts from his office, because we need to use his audio there. Otherwise, he'd be in here with us. So, Steve.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mayor, do you still have your virtual background on, or do you think you could turn it off if he's coming in there?
Steve is actually going to be in his
Okay,
office, but then I will take it down if Sergeant Robertson's going to, or Sheriff Robertson's going to come up and make any comments.
okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Our proclamation really summed up a lot of how we feel about Sergeant Holman, but I think it's important to really focus on the fact that Deputy Holman created a partnership not only with the town, but with the town organization and the employees. And in his 6 years, those partnerships really helped us to incorporate more of the municipal or town city side of the services into our structure. My team knows the term binder project, and we've also worked with the Sheriff's Department to talk about the philosophies and approach to law enforcement in Yountville that's appropriate. And Sergeant Holman's been a critical component. On a personal note, those past 6 years have been interesting ones. We've had to deal with the success of the tourism industry and the things that can come with that. We've also had an earthquake, a few fires, a shooting incident, unfortunately, and a pandemic. And through all of that, he has exhibited an incredible partnership, team-oriented and working towards the town. I'm sure he could remember crashing at my house during the height of the emergencies. And I also remember in the middle of one of the fires when we couldn't get any communication from the county, we got in his vehicle and drove down to the county to find out what was going on. So I share some of that because our employees feel and treat all of our deputies, and I say that with our primary deputies, but we've had a great legacy of sergeants that have served the Yountville station. But in my opinion, Sergeant Holman is creating big shoes for people to follow, and a great foundation for which additional, I shouldn't say additional, but the sergeants that follow will have to build on and improve and put their mark on how they want to provide law enforcement. So with that, I please join myself and our organization, our employees in the organization, and really wishing you all the best in your retirement and your next ventures. So thank you so much for choosing the Yountville assignment when I'm sure you had many choices in your Sheriff Department career.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm going to put the sheriff on the spot. since we don't get him up here very often, and I know that this is going to be maybe one of the last few times we do have a chance. So, Sheriff, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the dais and using my microphone here to share a few words. And feel free to sit there so you can be on the camera.
Keep my mask on.
You can take it off.
Sit down.
Yes, please. So you can see yourself.
I want to use your virtual background.
Yeah, there you are.
Well, thank you very much. And you know, we've said it time and time again. It's an honor to work up here for you in Yountville, and we value the relationship, and we value it so much that you know, quite honestly, in conjunction with working with your town manager, Steve, we try to send you the very best, and we certainly have done so with John, and we're sorry to see him go. Personally, I think he's leaving too early, but he's apparently got plans. So anyway, it's been a pleasure to have him up here. Our relationship has never been stronger with the town, with the council and the town manager, and we appreciate that relationship. John is still going to be working with us on some technical stuff, and so we'll still have him around, and I'm hoping that we can make a nice choice and fill his vacancy, or as Steve said, very large shoes to fill. But we will work very hard to get you another great person to come up here and work through whatever the next 6 years have to offer. Hopefully it'll be nothing like what we've experienced the last 6 years. So I also want to thank you for supporting John while he's been up here through all of the tragedy and issues and fires and earthquakes and things like that. And the support that you've given him and given our office has been tremendous. And I want to thank each one of you council members for that, and the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Sergeant, did you have any?
I'd love to.
Please.
I'm going to also sit down.
Probably have to lower the chair for you.
Okay. I just wanted to be able to sit in the mayor's seat. I wanted to say it's been an honor. I have thoroughly enjoyed working up here and representing the sheriff's office, and I've made great friends. I can truly say I love you guys. I love Yountville. You're part of my family, so thank you very much. It's been great.
Yes, let's hear real applause. It's really been an honor and a privilege. I know that you and I have had a lot of conversations over these years in some very challenging situations and some lighthearted and fun. Sometimes I've been on the bike, sometimes you've been on the bike. But it really speaks to your community connection and your emphasis on community policing and law enforcement, which really fits our community so perfectly. And you identified that, and that's the way you operated and led us for these many years. So I personally want to thank you for that. You know that I have a connection with family and law enforcement, so I understand the sacrifice that you make and all of you as family make. The weekends, the nights, the holidays are the times that not everybody really understands what the extra effort is that you put in. And we know it. And so thank you for that. When I was working on that proclamation, things really jumped out at me. Community service, your personal attitude and kindness, always had a level head no matter what situation we were in, and you were a voice of calm, which is sometimes the most difficult thing, but it was also a voice of respect no matter whom it was that you were working with in sometimes very challenging situations, but often that diffuses a difficult situation, and you knew that, and we saw it time and time again. So thank you for keeping us safe and being part of our Yountville family. And you're welcome anytime. I think we'll recognize you out of uniform. I'm not sure, but we do look forward, at least we could see your smile again without a mask on in a few weeks, and have you all come back up in a casual setting and just be able to tell some good, fun, maybe embarrassing stories over the many years of your career. And we just get to love on you a little bit more. So thank you again for the years in Yountville and also throughout Napa County. Thank you. And thank you to everyone from the Sheriff's Department that has come here to recognize one of your finest colleagues. Very, very much appreciate you all being here.
Just so you know, we have Captain Phone Dodd in charge of our operation. We have Captain Chris Carlisle, who's Services Division, Operations Lieutenant Mike Bartlett, and our Administrative Services Manager, Wendy. And Wendy's up here to talk to you about the contract.
Well, thank you all for taking the time out to be here and be a part of our honoring Sergeant Holman. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Of course, it's a happy and a sad time for us here in Yountville, but really it's a great privilege for all of us to be able to recognize a great partnership, not only with Napa County Sheriff's Department, but with Sergeant Holman and all of our deputies that take care of our community. So we will move on to the rest of our business for the day. Next, I'll ask Michelle or Eddie if we have any public comment on items not on today's agenda.
No, we do not, Mayor. None have been submitted.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to our consent calendar, items 7A, B, and C. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
So moved.
I'm going to go with, I think, Councilmember Moeller motion, seconded by Vice Mayor Dorman. Roll call, Michelle, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Moeller.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dorman.
Yes.
Councilmember Dornbecker.
Yes.
Councilmember Knight.
Yes.
And Mayor Dunbar.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have no presentations on agenda item 8. We'll go on to our one public hearing for today, item 9A, a use permit request. Consider adoption of resolution number 21-4058, approving a use permit allowing tandem parking at 1 Landy Way, APN 036-463-016. We'll start with the staff report. I know we have a guest. I believe I see him joining us. Let's just make sure he is fully connected. I think we're still waiting for audio. Okay, I think he is here. So we can get started.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. Tonight, you have a use permit before you for tandem parking at 1 Landy Way. This item is currently going through ZDRB for design review. That, of course, is not before you tonight, but since the overall design includes a reconfiguration that renders tandem parking necessary, and since tandem parking in residential and commercial areas requires a use permit, this item is before you tonight. Section 1788030 of the Yountville Municipal Code regulates parking requirements for a single-family residential use. 1 covered and 1 screen space are required. And Section 1788020 regulates tandem parking as it relates to off-street parking requirements. And this section of the code states, and I'll quote now, except in mobile home parks or is provided by a use permit, tandem parking where a car or cars have to be moved in order to allow a car to back from a parking space, shall not count as fulfilling off-street parking space requirements. In connection with use permits for tandem parking, consideration shall be given to lot configuration, i.e. narrow lot width, locating all parking spaces beyond the front setback depth, increasing efficiency and use of available space, infill development will be facilitated, impacts to adjoining properties will be minimized, and parking for second dwelling units or affordable housing units is facilitated. So as it stands, and I'll dive into those issues in a little, as it stands, the property currently has 2 screened spaces. These are provided by the existing 2-car garage. The applicant's proposal would reduce this to 1 covered space with a single car garage and 1 space in the driveway that would be partially screened by an entrance gate as well as landscaping in compliance with the town's requirements. However, since 1 car would be in front of the other, as I mentioned, this does require tandem parking, and so a use permit is required. So back to those, and I believe we have a PowerPoint. If we could pull that up where I can share my screen and I can show the site plan. Michelle, do you want me to share my screen, or is that something we can
I think Eddie might be taking care of that for you.
Okay.
We need to be able to share screen, Michelle.
I'll let Daniel go ahead and do that if you don't mind. Daniel, do we need to give you permission?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to make you a co-host. Okay, let me know if that works.
That worked. Give me 1 second.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, can everyone see the site plan?
Yes.
Okay, so on the left hand, you have the existing conditions. You can see there's that long driveway leading back to the garage at the rear part of the parcel. On the right hand is the proposed conditions. So the applicant is seeking to install a pool where the existing garage is. And as you can see, doing a tandem parking configuration with a single car garage and 1 driveway parking space. So the municipal code calls out 6 issues that should be considered when considering use permits for tandem parking, and I will go through those now. The first one is configuration and lot width. So tandem parking is really appropriate for parcels where traditional parking configurations are difficult or impossible to accommodate. So this would usually be long, narrow residential lots. Most frequently, we've seen tandem parking occur in commercial districts, and that's probably where you're familiar with it occurring in Yountville. And this is usually to accommodate on-site employee parking. And so this is a matter of, employees who are all part of one shift will actively coordinate amongst themselves to make this work, because you do need to move 1 car in order to access others. So in terms of configuration and lot width, this parcel doesn't really have the unique dimensional concerns that we've seen in previous requests for tandem parking. However, as you can see on the right-hand side here, the proposed reconfiguration of the outdoor spaces, the garage, and the driveway would have the effect of reducing the potential parking and driveway footprint. And so this would make tandem parking an appropriate option to fulfill the parking requirement. However, there's a question for the town council here, a question of interpretation, which is whether the purposeful reduction of the existing parking space area to make way for an accessory use, which is the pool, if that complies with the intent of the chapter. So yeah, that is a question of interpretation for the town council. The second issue that we consider is the location of the parking spaces. We like to see these located fully beyond the front setback, which is 20 feet. And this provides for a more aesthetically pleasing streetscape. The proposed configuration locates the parked vehicles 34 feet back from the front property line, so that fulfills this recommendation. Third is increasing efficiency and use of available space. The reconfiguration of the outdoor space and the addition of a pool would result in a more desirable and arguably more efficient overall use of space on the parcel, since you would be adding an amenity while still retaining all habitable square footage. The fourth issue is facilitating infill development. And facilitating infill development is really important, as we all know, Yountville is largely built out. And so the last remaining opportunities for development in town, either residential or commercial, are infill. And we also depend on infill largely to meet our RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment numbers, that require the town build a certain number of housing units every 5 years. This project, as proposed, has a negligible impact on current or future infill development potential. An ADU could still be constructed on this parcel. and no new parking requirements would be imposed for the ADU as the parcel is within half a mile of a transit stop. The fifth issue to consider is minimizing impacts on adjoining properties. So as proposed, the project will have little to no impact on adjoining properties, although the open parking space may be visible from the adjacent public path, but all parking will remain located on the parcel, and so there won't be any wider parking impacts on the neighborhood. The sixth issue to consider is that parking for second units is facilitated. As I mentioned previously, any second unit or ADU built on the property would not be required to have on-site parking, and so that point is fairly moot. One last issue that I will bring up as part of this application is, so on May 11th, the ZDRB considered the design review application that is associated with the improvements noted above, or previously noted. The ZDRB is continuing this item to their next meeting in June, and they've cited, varying concerns about it. However, use permits for tandem parking in residential districts are really uncommon. So to staff's knowledge, this is the first residential use permit for tandem parking that has gone before the town council. And so this has required us to sort of bifurcate the application process here. While part of it is being considered before the ZDRB, part of this application is obviously before you tonight, and that has meant a stranger process than most applications, which either usually go before just the ZDRB or just the town council. And so staff believes that this presents an opportune moment to sort of consider this and raise the issue of whether use permits for tandem parking or even use permits for all residential zones should be a competence of the town council or of the Zoning and Design Review Board, which is the more traditional body to review issues of this type. We are currently also updating the town zoning and design ordinance with the ad hoc committee, and this issue is being raised in that ad hoc committee, the varying decision making authorities and where this decision-making authority would live for use permits and specifically for tandem parking. So I did just want to call that out, that this is sort of a first. It's a little bit strange, and since we're going through this process with the Zoto update, we wanted to raise it right now before you, since it kind of brings things into real life relief. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, for discussion and any questions you have of staff.
Thank you. I'm going to start with a question of our town attorney. Gary, I can't see you right now, but I'm sure you're out there. It has to do with the last part of Daniel's presentation. We seem to be asked two different things. One is this specific application and only the tandem parking element of that application, not anything to do with the ZDRB's review. Can you confirm that, first of all?
Yes, that is correct.
Then part two is, should we complete our hearing on that item, close that, take action, and then discuss whether it's appropriate to modify our authority in this space with tandem parking going forward between the ZDRB and the council? How best should we proceed with that piece?
So I think as to the second piece, it was a staff information that is something that will be coming back before you when the Zoto update comes back through the ZDRB and also to the town council later this summer. And Sandra and Daniel might be able to tell you the date that they are planning on bringing it back before you. But as to the agenda this evening, it is only for this use permit. And so that should be the discussion before you. And the future discussion on any changes to the municipal code can be part of the meeting when that's before you.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just make sure that we were all clear on, basically, we're not discussing whether there's going to be any change to that authority. This is purely the application for the tandem parking piece of this. It also is not a review of what is before the ZDRB. So just to clarify that. Are there any other questions from council before I open the public hearing and we hear from our applicant? No questions from the council. Okay, so I believe I do see our applicant and consultant here. I'm not sure which is, or if both are going to speak, so I'll just invite either of you to go ahead and address the council. Actually, I do need to formally open the public hearing before you do that. And now I can invite the applicant to address the council. And Ryan, I see you leaning forward. Are you reaching for that mute button? There we go.
There you go. Yes, what we're trying to do on this property is add some value to it. The existing garage right now faces the one of the most appealing areas of the Yountville area, which is overlooking Stag's Leap area, and the backyard backs up to the vineyard. And currently, right now, the areas that are that touch that area are the living room, which is what would be ideal, and a 2-car garage. It's a very poorly designed use of space. So our goal was to actually add an additional master bedroom there, but due to other conditions with FAR and so on, we were unable to come to an ability to do so. So to try to improve some of the value and add amenity to the property and value, we found that if we did the pool area within the existing floor plan of the 2-car garage and bring the garage forward, since it's such a long drive in, we might have some ability to do that. Right now, the driveway allows for a 2-car parking and 3 cars in the driveway, which is way more than what we'll ever need, and I think is not necessary. Our goal was to actually go to a 1-car garage, and then it's still a very large one for additional parking and storage and such, but there'll still be 2 parking spaces in the driveway. The idea is the house right across the street from us is a house that was in a I guess zoned and allowed and permitted to actually have a 1-car garage, which is tandem. I did take a variety of photographs and pictures of houses on my block, which just the surrounding block had 9 houses that had 1-car garage and parking. This will be a larger than a 1-car garage. If approved, we'll still have a lot of functionality in the driveway, but add some value to the house in the neighborhood as well. We've gone through a few rounds with Ivan, who's also with us right now, the architect, as well as a very competent pool designer who's done over 10,000 pool designs in his tenure, and he's in Sacramento. And this is the plan that we've come up with that we feel is aesthetically pleasing and beneficial to the value of the property. My wife is just got awarded Nevada's Best Interior Designer from Architectural Digest, who helped us on this plan, and as well as I do luxury real estate here in Glenbrook in the east shore of Lake Tahoe. And we all feel that this is the best remodel alteration to gain value to the property as well as the surrounding neighborhood.
Great, thank you.
One more thing
Yes.
to add to that, which makes some difficulties. The property in itself right now has an easement, a community easement, which is a sidewalk which runs to the abutting side, right side of that plan, which allows people to walk from the street down toward the vineyard and right to a children's park, which my 3-year-old tends to really love. But furthermore, we would have loved to have put the pool in the back of the property, which would have been the most ideal place for us to do so. But that property has a community sewer line easement. So this property has been burdened by the city easements with that sewer line, which runs along our grassed backyard area, which would have been the pool place, as well as the easement to the right. We took a gamble on purchasing this house recently, hoping that we could work through this process. But with that sewer line easement in that path, has really made the house difficult to sell. Fortunately, we had a lot of talent and foresight to see what we could do and potentially get through this process. Just as to state a fact, the property didn't sell to 6 other prospects due to these desired changes not being able to comply with the above mentioned issues. All of the project mentioned, all of the prospects mentioned that had they would have paid far more than listing price, and one is even as much as 50% more than what the house sold for, which would have been well over $3 million if it had already had this been done. This would be excellent comps for the neighborhood as well. With the amount of money that we're putting into this project, ultimately to build a pool, which seems like a pretty simple thing to do with the demo, the reconfiguring, obviously the legal work that we've had to put into it, the talents of the architect as well as the pool designer, and with hopes to get this done, you know, we're probably close to a $400,000 price tag just for that. It's really important to us. Our son loves swimming. It's kind of the idea. So hopefully you guys can see that with the driveway, with the space, and all the 6 points that Daniel brought up, that this it really should be a wonderful thing to approve and be proud of.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant from the council? Councilmember Dornbecker.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar. Thank you, Mr. Schiestel. Is that correct?
Schiestel, ma'am. Yes, Schiestel. You can call me Ryan. That's fine. But, we'll skip the Mr.
Okay, Ryan. You can call me Marita. Anyway.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
So I take it from how you've described it that you're planning to live there. Is that correct?
So this is going to be a regular vacation home for us. Our permanent residence here is in Glenbrook here on the east shore of Lake Tahoe. We bought this house with the idea that this would be a place for us to escape the winter weekends and still be able to maintain both of our jobs here in our careers where we have a lot of client demand. And so we're still under the guise that we can do most of things remotely, but still, if there is an issue or a fire to put out or an ultimate need, we're only a 3-hour drive door to door.
I see. I guess I was confused because you talked about the property value almost as though you were planning to sell the property. Are you?
No, yeah, no. Any property, being coming from real estate and having done that for, since 1999, everything I invest in, I always look at what the overall potential outcome is. If it were to be the case, we're not flipping this property that is of zero interest to us. This is a legacy property for us. So we look at keeping this for generations.
Okay, and I believe that we will not be addressing some of the other issues you brought up, like the right-of-ways and things like that, but I'll ask Sandra about that at another time. Thank you.
Yes.
Right, and we are specifically talking about tandem parking today, not about easements, not about how often the home will be occupied or resale or any of that. We are just focused on the tandem parking component, which is a unique component. Any other questions from the council? Are there any public comments that have come in, Michelle, on this item?
No, Mayor, there are not.
Thank you. So if we don't have any further discussion, I'm going to close the public hearing and invite discussion by the council. If anyone would like to volunteer to go first. Yes, Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I read the report, a staff report, and I can support the general use permit findings and the condition of approval for this tandem parking conditional use permit. I think I just would want to emphasize to the community that this is a conditional use permit. That means it's a permit specific to this parcel, not something that would always be approved on a residential lot. This lot's unique. It has, as the applicant mentioned, it has a path on the south side of the property, so there's separation from residences. So I support the tandem parking conditional use permit, and also to speak to the community and to the Zoning Design Review Board. And as the mayor and the town attorney mentioned, that we are only speaking to the use permit. And my position on the use permit isn't a tacit support of the other issues that or opposition that the Zoning and Design Review Board is reviewing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Knight. I do want to ask before I invite other comments from council, Sandra or Daniel, does this impact any necessary screening adjacent to the pathway that was referenced by the applicant? I know there's a hedge, there are trees there. Does this impact that at all? I know that we've had some screening requirements as part of duplexes that, in particular, Girardi Place, but I think that had to do with the fact that the home frontages were not facing the street. That's one question, whether any additional screening would be required because one car is getting moved out of a two-car garage. I'm thinking no, but I just want to confirm that. And the other thing is there any implication that we need to concern ourselves with about accessory dwelling unit conversions of garages? We have lost control of that to state law. And so is there any concern or implication that we have to consider in this case?
Well, for this screening, the requirements in the code are that one covered space and one screen space is provided. It doesn't exactly say what qualifies as one screen space, and that has largely been left to staff's determination. However, we would hold them to the same requirements that this space that's in the driveway be screened like any other approved screen space here in town.
And as I said, I know that because I use that walking path rather regularly, that there's already landscape screening as well as a side fence. And so I think that's adequate if there was a requirement. So, and do we know, is there any concern about the other issue I raised about ADU conversion?
Not to my knowledge. They are reducing the square footage of the garage, and they would be free to convert the garage to an ADU. In the future, it would just be a smaller footprint of one, but it still is at the square footage level that you could fit a totally functional ADU. So that I don't foresee any issues there.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I already thought both of those answers, but I wanted Daniel to confirm it for me. So thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments from council? And if I don't see any hands, I'll entertain a motion if there is one. Vice Mayor? We cannot hear you yet. There you are.
Okay, sorry. I accidentally put a thumbs up, but look at that as a raised hand. I must say that I have some real issues with this. In looking through the 6 items, Mr. Gordon mentioned lot and we shall do these things. Lot consideration. This is not a narrow lot. Locating all parking spaces beyond the front setback. Although, yes, it technically meets the requirement, it does push the back end of the car much closer to the curb. So technically meets it. I get that. Increasing efficiency and use of available space. They are, applicant is proposing to cut a garage in half, take away a screened parking place to add a pool. This to me is not efficient use of the space. This is, as the applicant has emphasized, a way to increase the value of the property the applicant has purchased. And I think when we look at this, it has come to us, part of our charge tonight is to look at the intent of what this ordinance is. And what we have is a situation where the applicant has created the situation that they now want us to give them an exception to remedy. The applicant mentioned he's in luxury real estate. He understood the easements. He somehow has knowledge of other offers that allegedly did not come to fruition. So I cannot find that this is an increase in the efficiency. Also, we are to look at infill development will be facilitated. I actually had my idea of infill development and it was not this. So I looked it up. Governor's Office of Planning and Research infill development refers to building within unused and underutilized lands within existing development patterns. This land is not unused, nor is it underutilized. It has been a single family dwelling successfully for many years. Number 5, impacts to adjoining properties will be minimized. Again, this may technically meet the requirement, but it does add to the visual clutter by pushing the car further to the street. And then finally, parking for second dwelling units or affordable housing units is facilitated. Now, I know that part of that at least is put into under a different lens because of the new laws regarding what we can and cannot require in the way of ADU parking. But when we look at this, and I think Mr. Gordon said, part of what we look at in this analysis is, will it help our arena numbers? We are taking a 2-car garage that could have a nice size ADU on it and cutting that basically in half to make a smaller ADU with no chance of parking on the property. Even if the landlord wanted to offer that as a perk, basically that is now out of the equation. So when I look at those and I go to the next piece, which is what in the resolution we would have to find, finding A is that the proposed use or feature is necessary or desirable. Losing garage space, we talk about this a lot. We're trying to get people off the streets. Tandem parking, any of us who have had it, and I include my house, cars end up on the street because you always have the car that's in the garage and you don't want to back somebody else's car out. Just anecdotal there, but I don't feel that it is a necessary or configuration to trade a garage for a pool. And then C, which is the other finding, such use or feature as proposed will comply with the applicable provisions of this title. I can't, because of my findings of 17.88.020L, so I am not able to make the finding that would support the resolution. I might also add that having read the ZDRB, because the applicant did bring up, or I believe Ms. Director Liston brought up FAR, this home already received an FAR bonus because it had a large garage in the back half of the lot. They now seek to cut that garage in half. It is a sliding scale FAR bonus. So technically, and it's very small, but technically the home will now be over the approved FAR. So that's another piece of the puzzle to look at when you look at, is it necessary or desirable that this is done? So thank you for the time. Those are my comments.
Okay, I'm going to ask the town attorney for clarification. Vice Mayor called these findings that are all required for her decision. I read the staff report as saying these are issues that should be considered when reviewing a request. Can you clarify how these relate, and do they all in fact need to be found qualified to approve this application?
Sure. So there are 2 separate things that the council is thinking about. One you're considering and one you're finding. The use permit findings are what's in the resolution before you and included and discussed in the staff report. Those are findings that are required for all use permits, including this one. The things that you're considering are in that subdivision L in the code section for tandem parking. The code simply says that they are to be considered by the council, and if all those things are considered, that would be sufficient to meet the requirements of the code. There isn't a requirement in the code that they be found or met, and the way that they're phrased are things that need to be thought about as part of your decision-making process, and that's why staff has highlighted them. It's a quirk of the process that's before you. Both things need to be thought about, but different from the consideration, what you're considering is not the same as the findings that you're making.
Thank you for the clarification. Are there other council comments?
Mayor? I
Yes,
would like
Vice Mayor.
to, yes, thank you for the question and the clarification. I apologize for using the wrong word. I stand by my comments, but as I look at the considerations, I cannot, at the mandatory considerations, I cannot make the finding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Other council comments? Councilmember Moeller.
I am, as we are being asked, very focused on one specific item, which is a tandem parking. I think that sometimes these things, as we've said, in Old Town and near some of the businesses, there are a lot of older houses that have tandem parking. I had a house a long time ago with a single driveway, even though it had a 2-car garage. I certainly cannot see that in terms of purely the tandem parking that we're talking about, it seems like it's a matter of the choice of the homeowner. If they want to have a strategy for who pulls in first and who pulls in second based on who's going to leave, that's really up to them. I can certainly find that this is a proposed use and the use permit that does fall within the findings of the staff report. Although it's kind of unique to us, we haven't done it before. We're going to have that discussion at a later council meeting, but this strictly focusing on the tandem parking and removing one of the garages that still leaves quite a bit of space in the other one, and the unique nature of this and the findings that are included in the resolution, I find it acceptable.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands, so I'll assume no other comments from council. Actually, Mr. Schiestel, we've already closed the public hearing part, so we're not, this is just for council's consideration. Before I go to Eric, Councilmember Knight, I'm going to go to Councilmember Dornbecker for first-time comments.
Thank you, Mayor. In consideration of the tandem parking, and since that is the issue that we are adjudicating or trying to figure out. Anyway, I believe that it is the homeowner's prerogative to decide how to, at his own property to deal with the tandem parking. And since the garage will be large enough to handle a car, and there is screening, landscaping, and I can support it. I think that it's up to the landowner, so I can support this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just quickly comment, and I'll go to Councilmember Knight. This won't be all my comments, but I've seen a pretty good-sized motorhome in that driveway parking area, and there's still driveway left. So it's a rather exceptionally long driveway for a single-family residence. In case, being the closest, I believe, to living in the most proximity to this site, I see it frequently, and I can vouch for how long. And I think that was the intention of the previous owner that designed and built the home, is having enough of that lengthy driveway for their own personal use. And I think that's, I can't speak for them for sure, but that certainly seemed to be a consideration. Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say that I always appreciate the Vice Mayor's analysis that I learned. I always learn something from her analysis, and I appreciate that, which has led me to a question for one of the planners. She mentioned just a question about FAR, and so I was like to know if FAR is a consideration for us to consider when we're looking at this tandem use permit, and then maybe again just clarification from the planners. I really see conditional use permits as something that are conditional and are unique to a property, and so while it may be appropriate for this parcel, it certainly may not be. It certainly it may not be appropriate for other parcels. So my question is about the FAR and about is my primary question.
I'm going to direct that to our town attorney
Thank you.
for clarification, because it sounds to me like it's outside the scope of this application. But Gary?
That was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as to the second point, use permits are unique to the parcel. This is an approval only for the parcel that's being applied for. It would not apply anywhere else. And future parcels would have to be under other, would come before you in the same manner. As to the floor area ratio, that's not part of the consideration or the use permit findings before you this afternoon.
Okay, thank you for the additional clarification. Okay, so I believe all the council, is your hand still up for additional comment, Councilmember Knight? Okay, thank you. And I'll just share my thoughts, and then I'll entertain action on this item. I am very familiar with this space, and I feel like tandem parking makes sense here. I don't see there any kind of degradation to the surrounding residents. This is a very unique parcel. It always has been. It's a one-of-a-kind custom-built home. It is not part of the Stags View Lane development. And so there are several unique features, not only the easements on the far east side of the property, but those are part of it. Also not our consideration today, but it's looking at this purely as, is it appropriate to have, instead of two cars potentially inside a garage, you have one inside and one outside. I think it's absolutely appropriate on this property. And the reality is very few people park two cars in a two-car garage anymore. And we can't kid ourselves about that. What's interesting about that is almost none of those other instances have I have to look again at the architect's drawing, 100 feet long driveway. Very few have that. Most of them, the car that's outside is right up against the sidewalk or parking bay. And so I don't see this as intruding on the streetscape at all. As I said, I've walked by when a large motorhome has been in the parking lot, and that doesn't even feel like it's right up against the sidewalk, the public sidewalk, the public pathway, or the street. My initial concern was the fact that it's on a curve, and it makes it a little tricky to have street parking there, but that's also not the responsibility of the applicant to address that. Again, just a unique feature to this parcel. I'm completely fine with this. The application, the request to modify, and so therefore I can support it as it's presented. And so with that comment, I'll entertain a motion if there is one. Councilmember Dornbecker, before there's a motion, is there a question before a motion? Or I saw Councilmember Dornbecker and Councilmember Muller's hands go up.
I just wanted to make a motion, Mayor.
Councilmember Dornbecker, I saw your hand go up first.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 21-4058, approving a use permit to allow tandem parking at 1 Landy Way, APN 036463016.
Councilmember Mueller, since you were ready for a motion, are you going to second that motion?
I'd be happy to second that. Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. So motion by Councilmember Dornbecker, seconded by Councilmember Mueller. Michelle, a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Dornbecker?
Yes.
Councilmember Mueller?
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dorman?
No.
Mayor Dunbar?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that does pass 4-1. Mr. Schiestel, congratulations on your application related to the tandem parking. You have other work before the town at a future date. So thank you for joining us today, and also to your architect. Thank you for being part of the meeting. We are going to move ahead now to our other business for today. And actually,
Did you want something, Mr. Schiestel?
Yeah, if I may just have 30 seconds, I just want to let you know, I thank you all, very much appreciated. As it is now, the two small car garage, we have a Cadillac Escalade and we can't even pull it in without my wife hitting the side mirrors, which is not her fault. So we're trying to go with the larger door. It should be patterned to the larger doors in the neighborhood, just food for thought. She's carrying, so she will be expecting another on the 27th, our second and last. That is the only vehicle we will be driving there with our family. And if we even brought a guest with their children with us, there will only be 2 cars there at any given point, as far as I can see out at this time. So I just want to let you know, we're not into street parking. We're totally against it. Again, as the mayor, thank you, Mr. Dunbar, had mentioned, there's plenty of driveway space, even with the gate that swings open, and that'll be wonderful. We're really going to do a good job to make this look great. And just as a point back to Carrie, the garage space is not being cut in half. We're reducing it by about somewhere between 10 and 15%. The garage is going to be really about the same size. So
not to be rude, but we've settled on the.
I just want to thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank
you received what you were looking for. So I'll say thank you for that. And we do have. We're going to move on to our other business. The next item. We have no administrative regular items, so we're going to go to a couple staff informational reports first. Celia, I saw you earlier. There you are. Our April 2021 financial report, or is it Kyle? You're both here.
It is me. Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So a few brief notes about the April financial report, which represents 83.3% of the fiscal year. One of the main highlights this month is that property tax collections through April have exceeded the budgeted amount by over $250,000. So that is really great collections and is somewhat helping to offset the loss of sales tax revenue, as both sales tax and transient occupancy tax still reflect lower than normal collections due to COVID-19 impacts. There was a slight reduction also of revenue from charges for services, as we had to lower the amount of a previously issued accounts receivable invoice. Besides the Yountville Arts Department, all general fund departments are still trending at or below the 83.3% of budget target. Capital projects continue to progress towards completion, and there are no concerns of any projects going over budget at this time. As for the enterprise funds, it still holds true that revenues from services are at or above the target level, and that most expenditures are under budget at this point, with the exception of the estimated cost of water purchases. Looks like I'm frozen, but I am still here. Does the council have any questions about the report that I can answer?
I am looking for hands to be raised. You are back live, by the way. You're moving. That's good. Just in time. I see no hands. So I would say no. That was, it's a wonderful thing that we are seeing such positive response to economic recovery. As the town manager mentioned in our countywide call this morning, we're getting about 10% of what we lost in revenue from the federal government. So it's still a challenge, but we are encouraged with what we're seeing, and you can continue to give us monthly reports as positive of that as long as you'd like.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next, we're going to get an update on the leaf blower incentive program and community outreach.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Got a quick update here for you on the gas-powered leaf blower ordinance. Eddie, if we could go to the next screen. So we have sent out mailers to all residents and businesses within town. We've also sent out informational mailers to the landscape companies that have current business license within town. We have our ordinance website up and running, and it's actually on the front page of the website, so it's easy to direct people to the site. And we've placed around 40 yard signs throughout town, and 4 banners were placed. They're down right now, but they'll be going back up after Sip and Stroll. I also wanted to say, it's not on the slide, but we also sent out approximately 50 mailers to landscapers who are licensed through the city of Napa, just as a way to kind of get more landscapers notified. So, and then to date, we've received 21 residential applications and 3 commercial. And we've given out a total of just about $3,050 in the funds. And moving forward, we are preparing to send out another round of mailers to residents and businesses. We're going to have those go out probably in the next week or 2. And we're going to continue to manage the incentive program. It's really slowed down after the initial startup in March. We haven't had that many applications come in since our last update. So if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are we doing any outreach to the city of Napa and their planning or permitting staff that might know the origins of some of the companies that may not have business licenses in Yountville, to try to outreach to them? Is there a connection there that we might need to pursue?
I'll have to look into that. We haven't yet, but I will look into that and see if there's somebody there that can help us out.
I'm thinking generally, because Councilmember Dornbecker and I, sitting on the Climate Action Committee, the countywide Climate Action Committee, this has become a priority for that committee for recommendations to the other jurisdictions to follow our lead with the leaf blower ordinance. So we may want to try to extend the outreach, because we know that many of the companies that are operating in, I know that we require there be a business license here, but if they don't know they need a business license and still aren't clear on the ordinance effectiveness in a month, just thinking of different creative ways to get the outreach. Yes.
And I think, Mayor, to that point, we do deal a lot of folks both in the whole valley with a segment that is not licensed. And this is why I think we were actually talking a little, it may have been last week or earlier this week, I'm already fuzzy on it. But the real strategy is we're going to be focusing on the homeowners, because the homeowners really need to be having a conversation with their landscaper. And in fact, we were talking about, we really need to stress it on 2 themes. One is the gas leaf blower situation. And then secondly, also follows, a lot of homeowners are dependent on their landscapers to adjust and manage their sprinklers. And we have the upcoming water limitations. So we're really working hard on that end, because as Erica mentioned, we have sent letters to those that have business licenses in the city of Napa. So the real challenge, as you can see, this industry is largely unlicensed. So that's our challenge, is there's no easy database. There's no local landscaping association. If this was something that involved the realtors, we'd have the Realtor Association, and there's a group. So we're struggling. One of the things that we'll be talking internally is, as this transitions, it will also be, outreach, education, and enforcement as we go into July. So we'll be having coordinated discussion with our public works and planning staff on that next phase, in terms of how we transition with that and how we continue to support the rebates. So we anticipate that the next target hopefully will get further with some of the commercial. I've also heard from some commercial business owners that have really said it's not that big a thing. we're making the transition. We're not going to apply for the rebates. And we've got a few more that have told us that they're going to be. So I anticipate that we, hopefully we'll see some come in, and we're prepared to continue and go on into the first part of the new fiscal year, and we'll continue. So any ideas you have on outreach, but really the most strategic thing we've stumbled onto is it's really got to be the homeowner handing something to their landscaper in order for it to work.
I think we should also consider, especially given the financial support from the Napa Sierra Club, they may have a mailing list that would be beneficial just for general awareness, even if it doesn't go straight to the landscape companies. Joe, did I see you raise your hand a moment ago?
No, I think Steve and the town manager and our management analyst, Erica Teagarden, covered it. We have reached out to the city of Napa, Mayor, as Erica mentioned. We're trying to really figure out how to reach people, and I think the town manager, we're on to something with trying to reach through the homeowners, because that's the best resource that we have for the landscapers that are here in town. So we're going to keep trying to figure out ways to get the people, and I'm sure that once the leaf blower ban becomes effective, we will figure that out in pretty short order. We will get some tips, and we will be out and about, and that will help us gather a few more folks, I'm sure. Agreed. Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank Ms. Teagarden for her work on this program. It's always exciting to support a project that has immediate health benefit and quality of life benefits for the community. So just a quick question as a reminder for myself and the community. Do we currently have a deadline for the rebate program?
No.
Okay, good, thank you.
Right, and in fact, Councilmember Knight, your proposed budget that you'll be taking action on June 15th includes an additional $10,000 in anticipation that we would have an outreach effort into the beginning of this year.
Good, thank you.
Councilmember Dornbecker.
Thank you, and thank you for the report, Ms. Teagarden. It was excellent. I was wondering if you'd had any feedback from some of the residents and homeowners who have applied for and received the grant, if they are planning to actually use it themselves, or are they, maybe, I thought some people might purchase it in order to have their landscapers, when they're here, use that. Is that something you've heard about?
Well, I have not heard that, but I have suggested that because we have had some feedback from residents stating that specifically that a landscaper didn't want to work in Yountville because of the ban and that it was going to be too expensive. So I suggested to her that she apply for the rebate, and she have it available for her landscaper. So that is something that I have tried to recommend to people. But at this point, I think most of the people are going to use it. I have used it themselves, but I have had a couple ladies let me know that they've purchased it for their landscapers to use.
I was thinking that might be another avenue to promote that, for that very reason, that, you don't want to lose your favorite landscaper because he's not going to come anymore. So tell him, oh, So anyway,
well,
thank you.
One thing to share, and I think, Mayor, you mentioned that the Napa County Climate Action Committee is looking at some programs which include taking the Yountville approach as a model ordinance. At some point in time, that approach from a business standpoint might not be a healthy one if additional communities enact a ban. And as this council knows, because we've shared with you before, the Air Resources Board is continuing and is currently in a period where they're looking at writing potentially some guidance that would eliminate the use. So this, within 2 years, this all may be a very different landscape, no pun intended, with regard to the ability to, even buy gasoline-powered small equipment.
Yes, and as I mentioned, it is one of, I believe, 3 priority kind of short-term priorities that the Climate Action Committee is focusing on. And so we were certainly encouraging to follow up. We'd already made the ordinance language available to all the city managers. And so it may be a countywide ordinance sooner than later, regardless of whether people are aware of it yet, just through Yountville. Any final questions on that report? I don't see any more hands. So thank you very much, Erica. Appreciate it. Okay, that's it for our updates from staff. We'll go on to our meeting reports. I do not have a flood control report. Napa Valley Transportation Authority, Vice Mayor, do you have a report?
I do, thank you. We met on May 19th. Our chair there is also chair of the Board of Supervisors, Alfredo Pedrosa. He reported on progress of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's Blue Ribbon Committee. The takeaway is they are focused on transit recovery, which suffered greatly during the ridership suffered greatly during the pandemic, but they are also looking ahead. And I believe this is almost a direct quote. There is not a debate on why there should be regionalization among our 9 Bay Area counties. The debate is how to make that happen, to have more efficiencies and effectiveness in transportation. Related to that, we received a report on Bay Area Plan 2050, which is the long-range regional plan for the Bay Area counties. One thing that they're really focused on, which is I think kind of new, is the nexus of housing and transportation, and they are really looking at that and also adding jobs into the jobs to housing to transportation ratio. So we are probably going to bring it to they will bring it to the NBTA for approval probably in the fall, and then after that implementation will take place over a period of time, continuing to gather public input. It's a very interesting read, and you can find it at planbayarea.org. At the same time, in all of this, there's a theme here. There is also ongoing discussion at MBTA and review of a countywide 2045 plan. One thing that did come up as we were discussing some of the various bills moving through or trying to move through the legislature is whether and we discussed that here as a council and staff, is what is a high quality transit corridor, because that triggers sometimes some housing density issues. At this time, there is not a Napa Valley high quality transit corridor. The time between the Vine buses does not meet that standard, but we are keeping an eye on that to see, again, the nexus of the transportation housing issues. And our next meeting is June 16th.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that is quite a long read. You didn't warn anyone about the page count on the either of those reports, but you need to have a little time. Thank you for the report out. That is MVTA. Upper Valley Waste Management, there's a report.
We didn't meet, but along the lines of garbage, I did attend and have been attending some solid waste roundtables, and at the last one, sometime last week, Derek Dolphy told us that he was contacted regarding the governor's budget, and we were kind of asked to put some money in to help support SB 1383. So I immediately, with the help of Steve Letter, fired off a letter to both the Senate and the Assembly budget committees supporting the Cal City's request for $72 million to help it's a total of $225 million. $72 million will support at each small county at a tune of $200,000 in each small city, which is Yountville, $125,000, and then the other $153 million will be divided against among other cities and counties on a per capita basis. So, and from everything I heard, it's so far pretty optimistic that we might be able to get some state funding to help with implementation costs for SB 1383. So stay tuned, I'll fill you in on that. And LAFCO meets on Monday. So
Very good.
no update.
You knew I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you. Watershed information. Do we have a report out there, Councilmember Dornbecker?
Well, we have a meeting next week on Watershed Information and Conservation Council. And, but I could talk about the Climate Action Plan Committee.
Okay.
So we received a presentation from the California Land Stewardship Institute on climate adaptation certification. But we also started working on some specific actions, which I was really relieved that we are working towards. And as you mentioned, Mayor Dunbar, we did talk about developing a template, an ordinance template on the banning of gas leaf blowers based on our ordinance. So the county is going to use ours as a model. Also to create a template ordinance to require events to meet zero waste standards, meaning that we would use compostable, we would require that they use compostable paper products, et cetera, et cetera. And then we also discussed the need for a countywide electrical vehicle changing station template and figure out what standards we need for those and throughout the county. And then finally, we also, they directed staff to prepare future cost sharing estimate scenarios to estimate budget impacts. So that was the countywide action.
And just one minor clarification, charging stations, not changing stations. I don't think it has to do with diapers, but.
Like a mom. I'm sorry.
Clearly you've seen grandchildren recently or something.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I read there was the article came out in the Napa Register that there is also a template legislation you're putting together to reduce or eliminate parking requirements for residents and businesses. Can you comment on that? Was that part of your climate action discussion?
There is, there's legislation in Sacramento that is trying to eliminate parking requirements for any development, especially near transit. I think it came up in the discussion about parking and parking ratios, but we didn't really get into that as a top priority. There were some other items that the committee felt could wait. The kind of the short areas of focus would be, as Councilmember Dornbecker addressed, those three items, because there was not agreement that any kind of parking ratios or changes related to legislation is as critical as the other items.
Okay, and just one comment on the waste and recycling. I think that sounds great, but also please plan for food recovery and organic recycling in a green can to meet SB 1383.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there's also a sensitivity to the financial impacts on special event planners to allow them some time to transition, but there is the kind of universal on the committee agreement that zero waste is a goal that we should be starting off with encouraging and ultimately get to potentially mandating. So yes, we will, it'll be as all-inclusive as possible.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for that Climate Action Committee report also. Let's see, Cal Cities, I was just going to reference, I know that, again, we have some policy committee members on our council. There are going to be policy committees is Thursday and Friday with the Cal Cities. It's a very interesting time in Sacramento, having gone through the suspense file process, which basically killed hundreds of bills that won't be considered going forward, but there's still a lot of activity that's happening there. We're going to be getting updates through those policy committees on Thursday and Friday, 7 of them total scattered over those 2 days. And so we'll probably have some report outs, possibly at our, I don't know that we'll do it during our council retreat on the 8th, but then at our next meeting, if there's anything that's still timely. Right now, things are moving potentially so fast we can't keep up with our meeting schedule. So I believe I'll just leave it at that with Cal Cities. Do we have any other ad hoc committee reports that we need? I know we already covered climate action. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I think Councilmember Dornbecker is going to start. We'd like to give some things out of the emergency preparedness ad hoc.
Oh, yes. And please tell us about how that table went when you were part of the countywide information outreach.
Yes, we did have a table at in front of Ranch Market, and it was really, really hot that day. I found out later that I got both my feet sunburned. It was just, but anyway, it was fine. We had people stopping by, and sometimes we trip them to try and get them to pay attention. But no, I'm kidding. No, and actually I was pleased because we had a couple of Latinx families come and talk to us and gave them some information, as well as one of our flashlights from town. And so it was, I think it wasn't the most productive use of our time, but I'm glad we did it, and it makes me really anxious to get a workshop put together. I've been trying to do that or wanting to do that. I haven't been trying hard enough, I suppose, but that's coming. And Carrie has some more information about.
Thank you. And I think the good news is most people we talked to had some awareness of the need for emergency preparation. Or had done some. The opportunity news is to make that more robust. And as Councilmember Dornbecker said, we are planning some workshops and some other goodies. So then I have 3 that they're not really committee work, but they are emergency preparedness related, which I'd like to share briefly. And I probably will ask the town manager to add these somehow to the website. One is the COAD, which is sponsored by Napa County. It's Community Organizations Active in Disaster. They do a great job on emergency preparedness, response, and resilience, but they are doing a Map Your Neighborhood outreach. The first piece of it is June the 9th. This really works in tandem with our own Yountville Neighbor Network, because the theory is you know your neighbors, you know where everybody lives, you get some contact information, and you can help each other before and after. And we also activated this, well, it's active all the time, but we did a special outreach during the pandemic. So it's not just emergencies, finite emergencies. Anyway, the training is going to be on June the 9th, and I'm going to give this website to register, but again, I'll ask the town manager to put it up. It's https://tinyurl.napacoad, and that's NAPACOAD, and that should take you to the registration, all of the information. There's also, some of you may have seen the article in the Register, the county and the sheriff's office are instituting a Know Your Zone, which is an evacuation tool. It is on the sheriff's office website, and it's very easy to find. You go to the county website, go to sheriff's department, and there's a big button there that says Know Your Zone. I put in my address. I live in Rancho. I put in my address, and we are in zone YOU-E001. So the way it will work is the sheriff's office will say, here's evacuation information for certain zones, and we can have more security and be more direct about how we get some of that information. And the third is Napa CART, which is Citizen Animal Response Team. They are providing for seniors in need no cost pet evacuation kits. And it's a carrier, collapsible bowls, template info sheets, you know, what is the pet's name, who is the owner, that kind of thing, and a training video. And there is, you can, if you fall into that category, a senior in need with a pet, it's info, send an email to info@napacart.org. They also are sponsoring a pet disaster preparedness on June 17th. Same website, napacart.org. Thank you very much.
And I will encourage you to either text or email those addresses to Steve so that we can confirm what those accurate addresses are. Sometimes it's hard to write down exactly what the backslashes and the
yes,
and everything else. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
I do want to, before I give a few items, I want to invite Samantha to share with us an update on Art Sip and Stroll.
Sure. So Art Sip and Stroll is coming up on Saturday, June 12th. And as of this morning, we are sold out of the tasting packages because of the limitations on, because it's only June 12th, so we're not at that June 15th date. We do have limitations on how we can conduct the tasting portion of the event. So it is within a tasting pavilion, and you have to schedule your tasting appointment. And so that did limit the amount of packages that we could provide. But regardless of if you are coming to taste wine or not, there's going to be 50 artists out there. And we're really excited about the layout this year at Veterans Memorial Park and then at the Yountville Community Center. And I think there's a lot of buzz. It should be a very busy day in town, really encouraging people to make their lunch and dinner reservations early. But we will have some additional food options at the Veterans Memorial Park as well. But it is a free event. There is no cost to come and browse and hopefully buy and take home the art. It's been a very rough year for artists in general, whether it's the musicians that we have coming or the actual artists, the painters and potters and all of the artists that we have coming. So supporting them with purchases is always the goal. So.
And we have a new sculpture in the Art Walk, correct, in Vandeleur Park?
We do. Seedling was installed, I believe, last week in Vandeleur Park. And then we have a fairly prominent installation happening this Thursday at the corner of Washington and Yount in front of the community center. And we actually sold an additional 2 pieces of art last week. So we have 2 more sculptures going to a new home, I think sometime this week. So it's a very busy time. Yeah,
great. Thank you for that.
And artsipstroll.com is where you can go to see all of the artists. Even if you can't attend the event, you can browse through all of the artists there as well.
Great. And I know that the Napa Valley Museum is also preparing to reopen. And so we're getting some more of that art and culture accessible again, which is great. I wanted to mention 3 things very briefly. The first one, we all gathered together outside this afternoon at 2 o'clock to raise the Philadelphia rainbow flag in honor of June being Pride Month. So I want to thank the council and staff and some of our local residents that came out and participated in that recognition. So the next time you travel past Town Hall, you will see those multicolors flying. And we had a nice enough breeze that it should be completely unfurled. So it has a very nice display in front of Town Hall. I want to thank Samantha Holland, especially for yesterday working with me and the Veterans Home Administration so that we could hold Memorial Day ceremony. There was a private for resident and staff only ceremony up at the Veterans Cemetery. We were not able to get onto the closed campus. So we met the administrator and her deputy and the public information officer. I also want to thank Garetti Flowers for once again keeping the tradition alive of beautiful floral display wreaths that recognize the town of Yountville, the Yountville Kiwanis, and the Veterans Home. Those wreaths, after we stood with them on display outside of the main entrance to the Veterans Home by the sign and the flags, they were going to be taking them up and placing them, as also is tradition, at the base of the monument for the unknown soldier. So while abbreviated, it was still our pleasure to participate on behalf of the town with our Veterans Home partners. And Samantha, again, I want to thank you for basically doing all the legwork to make it happen and make sure that we keep that tradition going. Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to thank you and Director Holland for your involvement in the wreath presentation on Monday as well. And so the reason I just want to quickly state is I wanted to also thank Director Holland and the Parks and Rec Department. I attended on May 20th the Dan Goodman's premiere of Lincoln Portrait. It was a beautiful short event, a short film about Lincoln and speeches that he made. And it was very enjoyable. And thank you, Director Holland, for organizing that. And I think you mentioned at that event that Mr. Goodman's video is available, maybe for the community to see, and I would highly recommend it. It was a beautiful film, short film.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Dornbecker.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask, am I correct that Sunday is also the first music in the park, Samantha?
Yes, Sunday the 13th of June is our first music in the park of the season. So it's going to be a very, very exciting, busy weekend in town. But, you know, that's kind of more of a low-key one. And we look forward to seeing all of our residents back at that for the start of the season.
So that's not this Sunday. It's a week from Sunday, the 13th.
Yes, the 13th. So our Tip and Stroll is the 12th, and then Music in the Park is the 13th.
And just a reminder, we will still be within the tier structures, and so face coverings will still need to be worn appropriately, as just a few days remain till we can fully unveil. The last thing I wanted to mention that is happening on this Sunday is Napa Climate Now is holding actually a weekend of bike rides for awareness and outreach about some of their climate initiatives. They have asked, and I will be presenting some of the climate initiatives that Yountville has already enacted and we are proud of during a presentation. They're doing a lunch and then a ride from Yountville to St. Helena, and I will be giving a presentation, brief presentation, getting to show off a little bit of what we are doing in Yountville. We have, when you think about it, and I talked to Joe a couple weeks ago about a list. It's a pretty long list. It's at least 10, I'd say, initiatives from our gas-powered leaf blower ordinance to methane recapture to recycle water to drought-tolerant landscaping, prohibition on pesticides, and a few other solar arrays. So we have a lot to be proud of in Yountville, and so I'll be able to show off a little bit during that. I think Joe and I will have already ridden our miles for that weekend, so I'm not going to get on the bike, but I will happily talk about what we're doing in Yountville. So those are the last reports that I have. If there are no others from council, not seeing any. Again, I want to just say thank you to our staff. I want to say thank you also to Sergeant Hallman for a wonderful career in law enforcement and the fact that we got to enjoy the last 6+ years of him leading our deputies here in Yountville. I said it earlier, but he really has such a wonderful personality for that job. And it's more than just a job for him. And you can tell that. And you can tell also, by the way, our residents really embraced all of our deputies, whether they were in their squad cars, on bikes, or hanging out for coffee in the morning or whatever. And that's the kind of connection that we're proud of with our law enforcement and our CAL FIRE folks. So when we talk about emergency preparedness, that's one of the best things that we could do is be totally engaged with our public safety crews. So thank you to him for his career. We do have a special meeting coming up Tuesday, June 8th for our council retreat. And so that's a little bit off schedule. So we'll be starting that at 8:30, I see here, unless Steve's going to chime in and say, no, he's moved it up to 8, but I think we're going to go with 8:30 for now. So
only if you're bringing the coffee.
No. So it'll be at 8:30. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to our special council retreat meeting on Tuesday, June 8th at 8:30.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Dornbecker and Vice Mayor Dorman moved and seconded. And it's unanimous, Michelle. I'm not even going to make you unmute. Thank you all, everybody. Have a great June, and we'll see you out there on the streets. Take care.
Bye. Thanks all.
Bye.
Good night.